Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The World Championship is officially over, and that means that over the coming weeks, pretty much every single team in the league is going to be making a change unless they won the World Championship or looked very good the entire season long. Big rumours today around Sentinels, who their new in-game leader might potentially be. We believe they have had trials over the last couple of weeks now as to a new potential in-game leader. FNS has been mentioned, but another name today going around as well they might be considering if indeed their results in practice have been as good as we believe they have been. Very much enjoy your perspective in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into. Obviously wanted to mention this from Jorgamo, right, as he says. I know that he turned the stream as well yesterday. Woke up still trying to understand that I can now call myself a champ. Crazy story from Evil Geniuses. Would have been a great story either way if EG or Payprex had won, but yeah, the EG fairy tale is something that we might not see again in Valorant or really in esports for a rather long time to come, from where they were to where they were a couple of days ago when they won the entire thing. Now, quick couple of comments on Sunset. I saw Sliggy do an analysis of this and how the map might potentially play out. Definitely an interesting map because this A bomb site, so the attackers spawn at the bottom here, the defenders spawn at the top, so they get to A quite quickly. And A seems to take as an attacker almost impossible as like an execute. I don't know if there's going to be like an A execute that's actually going to be able to work here. Mid-map control is very important, but the way that A works, there's a ramp that runs up here, so already you're at a disadvantage playing from like a height disadvantage if you're trying to go up this ramp. Going right and wrapping around the bomb site, there's so many choke points here that, you know, a player with a judge in any of these positions is going to be a nightmare to deal with, or even just any weapon, to be fair. And then if you wrap around the left side, you can get in, but even then, like, you're probably going to have defenders over here. So executing A doesn't really seem on Sunset like a viable strategy. I think the plan will be for the attackers, take mid, like, every round. And it does seem like the attackers will have a slightly easier time to get mid. Okay, they've got 2 entrances to mid. The defenders have 2 entrances to mid as well. So I think it's going to be big mid-map control, and the plan for the attackers will probably be get mid-map and then either split B or try and get through spawn. And literally, if you want to split A, you've got to go all the way through, because even if you just get through this part here and try and wrap on this side, you've got to worry about this part, you've got to worry about this part as the defenders could be, and then still you're wrapping in the same entrance you could have just come in anyway. So in order to actually wrap the side, you've got to get fully into their spawn, which might be possible because it's quite likely that you know, the defenders don't need that many men on A at the start of the round. So it's going to be interesting to see how the meta plays out here, but I imagine that a B split will be quite likely the go-to strategy for the attackers, because it doesn't seem like B is super easy to take, but it's definitely easier to take than A is with the way this map is set up. So will it play well? I don't know. I know there's been some talk about potentially, you know, agents like Cypher being really strong around a bomb site like this, so it's going to be interesting to see what teams decide to do. But I mean, look, this is how it goes. Even if the map plays terribly, it's in the map pool, so that's how these things work. Now, there's also been a teaser on the new agent, another one, right? I mean, kind of incredible. Deadlock doesn't feel like that long ago, but Deadlock is useless, and they didn't even update her in the new. I mean, they made all these changes to the meta, right? Nerfed Jet, all the other agents largely got nerfs as well, to maybe try and help agents that are underutilized get more use. Maybe you should just buff those agents. Deadlock, I thought, might get buffed in that as well. Not the case at all. And there's a new duelist on the way, which does come at interesting timing, actually, just because, I mean, this is probably going to be launched in the coming months before the new season begins. So, you know, Jet has been nerfed, the new duelist comes in, so we don't really know what's going on here. Codename is Hyper Focus, so we expect that some of the Jet players will now go onto the Raze more full time, which might even favor guys like Zekken, because, you know, he's really good on the Raze, and Jet, he's good on the Jet as well, but I think he's even better on the Raze. And some players will now go to the Chamber on a more full-time basis as well, unless there's any further major meta shifts over the coming months. Now, Evil Geniuses, I couldn't believe this. This almost was like a joke that someone would come up with, but this is actually real, I think. If we go to the website, let me just clarify this is actually real and they're not just making this up, because yeah, it actually is. I can't believe this, but so before they won the World Championship, they'd clearly designed this logo. I mean, look at this thing, man. They could have done such a better job than this. This is classic Evil Geniuses. They've just somehow won the World Championship, and they put out the most god-awful merch you're ever going to see in your life to commemorate it. I'm sure they'll do something else better at some point, but I mean, look at this thing. It's absolutely atrocious. So I know they were getting cloud on this heavy, but I guess they won the World Championship, so, they can't be too bad at the end of the day. Now, we've got to mention Rostermania, because Shazam, it's going to be interesting what happens with G2 going forward and all the Tier 2 stuff, but the Tier 2 stuff will quite likely have to follow from Tier 1, because some of those players in Tier 2 are going to get poached to Tier 1. That's how we currently believe, and of course, some of the players in Tier 2 already qualify for Tier 1 because they won Ascension, for example, in the case of the Guard. Now, this is another update on the Asia-Pacific side. If you guys have followed Counter-Strike from that region for some time, you'll probably know of the name Execute. Is it pronounced Execute? I think it's just Execute, right? That's how they used to pronounce it back in the day anyway. He is the brother of Forsaken. Notable player, of course, for Paper X, and there were some talking points as that he could be a potential replacement for Jing. Now, that's not for sure, and we don't exactly know what role he might run, but he has been discussing this on stream, that potentially Execute and Jason playing, or, Jason he says here, but Forsaken, playing together could be a legitimate option, as he says, I don't think he's been playing Counter-Strike for some time, and he wants to go pro in Valorant again, and he says, look, I'm going to grind it and see if I can make it work. So that definitely gives him a bit of an in to potentially joining Paper X if that's an option. So that's pretty exciting. Now, also wanted to share what Som had to say on this. The big rumor of the last few days really has been FNS potentially to Sentinels. It seems like, despite how well Marved did on that team, it seems like they might have trialed some scrims with no Marved and an actual proper caller in the game instead, such as FNS. We believe it's very likely that he was on that team trialing at some point. The rumor is that they've trialed many players over the last few days, or at least a couple of players over the last few days, very likely to be an actual in-game leader, and we are pretty sure that they were scrimming at the same time that NRG was scrimming without FNS on their team. So it's likely they at least trialed him, but he's not the only candidate, and I know that FNS has been joking about this, but he always does, and Som has been joking about this as well, but, we'll see. I mean, so many things can happen here.
Come on, get me in the line of fire.
Need a drop.
Why is FNS joining Sentinels if he wants trophies? Because I'm joining with him. Damn. That would have been Giga Chat if I won something, but I didn't. So, in other words, no trophies. But we get paid! That's for damn sure we getting paid. No trophies, no win. Still got the monies.
So do you guys think there's any reasonable chance here that FNS and Som go over the way to Sentinels? Unlikely. I'd be kind of surprised, to be honest, if Sentinels only make a one-man change, because I was pretty convinced, to be fair, going into this offseason, that Sassy and Pancada would be gone. But depending on what Louds do, and depending if there's any good options on MIBR or Furia, Sassy and Pancada might think, you know what, our best chance is to stay where we are. Now, Sassy doesn't want to IGL. Pancada might be more comfortable back on the smokes with no Marved. So, and you're not going to keep Marved over Pancada because then it might not work out so well for Sassy. So there's a few reasons why, even though Marved is a really good player, and I think he did a very stellar job for the team, it might just make more sense for him to go elsewhere. Potentially, he could even join NRG, and that's been a talking point lately. But this is what I wanted to get into, that a certain John QT of M80 has been teaming together, just in ranked and stuff, with, so potentially an option that he might have been playing with these guys in scrims as well, with Sentinel. Zekin was spotted, and also of note is Sassy, which is definitely very interesting. So you got to wonder why this might be the case. So John QT, if you guys are unaware, was the in-game leader for the M80 team this most recent season. Got very close, of course, to actually qualifying and winning Ascension. They made the grand finals against the Guards. They eventually went down 3-1 to the Guards, and that entire team found themselves effectively out of a chance, right? Out of a spot going forwards. Of course, Nismo, Xander, John QT, Kuala Noob, and EU were a great team for the entire season. Not quite as good as the Guard when it really mattered at the end of the day. But still, John QT was highly rated from that team, absolutely, and definitely in terms of in-game leadership options, would be one to consider. Now, not to say you wouldn't consider if you're Sentinels the likes of FNS, which you of course would, Valin, but John QT as well is in the conversation. Valin now on the Guard, but he's not going to go anywhere. There's definitely something to be said about that. So what do you guys think about this as an option? Because many people have been wondering the incredible practice results we saw from Sentinels with this mystery 5th man could have been with FNS, absolutely. But now we're seeing some hints that maybe there's someone else in the conversation as well. So there's not necessarily a massive rush here for some of these teams. But to be fair, if, some of these teams have to make their call quickly, Evil Geniuses aren't going to make any changes, right? Obviously enough. That does leave, for the example, BCJ in quite an interesting spot, whether he could potentially get signed elsewhere or if he wants to leave and go to a different team rather than just play on their effectively second team to practice against them for some time. That might not be what BCJ is really dreaming of, especially after a great end to the season last year on XZ. So, things will move quickly, as they always do here in Rostermania. And over the next couple of days, I'm sure we will start to see some big rumours as to where these players are going to go. FNS will continue to joke about it, I'm sure, but, I don't imagine that he's not in the conversation, but he's probably not the only one that Sentinels might be considering. But even then, if they make a one-man change, could they consider a two-man change? I know that, of course, Slasher said, Slasher Breslau before the tournament began, that he expects tends to be gone 90 to 95% likelihood, and there's all this talk lately about salaries and the reason why Sentinels simply can't sustain what they're paying for too much longer, and that might mean that something has to happen with Tens if he's getting paid the big bucks, as he probably is. So I don't think this story is over yet, just like a one-man change Marv for FNS and then it's done. I don't think it's as clear as that. There's other players in the conversation and there's other factors in consideration as well, and obviously it's not just Sentinels this affects, but all the other teams as a kind of consequence in the Americas regions, and to be fair, around the world in some sense. Now, just to close out, wanted to mention this, the highest pick rate agent at the World Championship, Killjoy, as we mentioned the other day, arguably, if not the strongest agent right now, 105 picks, then Sky, then Raze, slightly above Jets, with Viper there as well. The overall numbers, now I know there was some picks for the likes of Reyna and others, but I think the only agent that wasn't picked potentially was Deadlock. We even saw a little bit of Phoenix, but the agents that actually were used were, commonly were as follows. So pretty much Killjoy, Sky, Raze, Viper, and then Jets. That's your top 5 pretty clearly. Then Omen, 42% of the time it was picked. Then Astra, Sova, Brimstone at 23%, and starting from the bottom, you've got Cypher here at 8%, and then Chamber gets up to 10. So pretty interesting, I've got to say, because Chamber was, I think during some of the last chance qualifiers, was sitting at maybe 7-8% pick rate around the world. Here at Champions, he was at 10%, which puts him on par with, Cypher and Harbor and kind of up there with Fade. So, with Jet getting nerfed, needing an operator, Chamber could find himself a little bit more back into the meta here, although some people will lean now to Raze, and Raze is already very highly picked as well. So the meta is going to be very interesting going forwards, but very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.